overcoming common temptation. Overcoming common temptation.
All right.
How many of you know that we are overcoming common temptation?
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
Oh, you can look at a couple people. Y'all know I'm going to say it. Look at a few people and tell them. If you know it, look at a few people and say, if you know that you're overcoming it, why not claim it?
Why not claim it?
Amen. 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 We're going to go ahead and get into the word on tonight. Overcoming common temptation. And as I began to study on last night and throughout the week, and as God began to give me revelations through my meditation, through my studying, and through my time, and He began to go back to a word that was spoken on last week during the storm. He began to go back to a word that was spoken on last week during the storm. And the word that was spoken to me as well as my wife. And they said God gave us common sense. They said God gave us common sense. How many of you know God gave us common sense? Amen?
Amen.
If you know God gave us common sense, let me see you just raise your hand for a minute. I see everybody don't know it. You see, everybody don't know it, and everyone is not listening. Amen. So if you know God gave us common sense, I want to actually break down the common sense as we get into the temptation. Because the word common actually means to share. The word common means ordinary, the same are to share. When you the word common goes back to the word communion. And when you look at the word communion, it means come together in union. So the word communion actually means to come together in union or to share or to become one. And so when you look at the word share is actually the origin of the word charity. Because the word charity goes back to the word share, because that's how it was formed. So the word charity actually means to love. So when you are actually in communion with someone, you are becoming one with that person, but you're loving them all at the same time. Amen? And so when you are overcoming something, you are actually saying that you are in the process of standing on top of it. You are in the process of putting it under your feet.
Yes.
You are in the process of conquering it. So if you're in the process, why not already claim it? Because when you speak those things that are not, they will become as they are.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
So we have to learn to speak these things out of our mouth. And so I have already claimed whatever it is that me and my wife, that whatever it is that we say that belong to us, we've already claimed it. Because you hear me say this all the time. Everything that you desire, everything that you want is already on the inside of you. All you got to do is create the vision, submit to the thought, and it will become what you want it to be.
All right.
Amen?
Amen.
And so when I'm looking at how I looked at the word communion and I looked at the word common, and everybody was saying that it's common sense. God gave us common sense, and that was before they knew the storm was turning. They were saying God gave us common sense to get out of here, because we don't need to be in danger. God gave us common sense to get out of here. And so when I begin to just study the word and meditate on it, as God said, it means ordinary. That means everybody is thinking the same. Nobody is setting themselves apart. Nobody wants to be separated and say that they're my child and they're trusting in me. So everybody that say that they have common sense, we're all on the same perception. Because the word sense means perception. Perception through your intelligence. And so everybody that, when you sense something, you're perceiving something.
All right.
You ever gotten to the point that you perceive something? That when you touch something, you're perceiving it. You can have your eyes closed and not know what it is. But your mind is trying to figure it out. And your mind don't know it yet if you're not familiar with it. Amen?
Amen.
Your mind don't know it yet if you're not familiar with it. And so when you're sensing something, you're in the perception through the intelligence, you're trying to recognize it. You are trying to recognize what you are feeling. And so when you're saying that we're all sharing the same perception, everybody around here was saying that we need to get out of town, mostly everybody. But there was a few of us saying no, 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 no. Because we cannot go. Now, I'm going this route because I want to deal with your temptation for a minute.
All right.
Because I want you to look at temptation from another perspective. Because we know that temptation, of course, is, oh, I got to overcome lust. Or I got to overcome my anger. I have to overcome my madness. I have to overcome what I went through as a child. I have to overcome cheating. I have to overcome adultery, fornication. We can name everything that's so obvious to us. But we don't deal with the temptation of the things that we are weak to, and that's lacking of faith.
My Lord, son. Lacking of faith.
Lacking of faith. And so when you're sensing something, you're perceiving it. When you're common with everybody, you're all thinking alike. Now, if God gave us common sense, then God is a what? Spirit.
Amen.
And we worship him in what? Spirit and in truth. And so to worship him is to become like him. And so when you're becoming like him, you submit it to him. And so you're submitting to his word. You're submitting to his law. You're submitting to his commandments. You're submitting to his covenant, his will, his testament. You are in covenant with God because you're listening to what he's saying. A lot of us tend to make a move before we listen.
My Lord.
And when you're not listening, you'll never get a chance to hear.
My God, son. That's good.
Because when you're on your knees praying, we get up so fast, don't we?
Yeah.
We don't want to hear what God said, but we want to tell God everything.
Lord have mercy.
If you're talking, how can God be speaking?
My God. Yes.
We don't have time to stay on our knees sometimes. We don't have time to spend time with God. We don't have time to spend time in the Word. You can never find time to spend time in the Word. You have to make time.
Amen.
All right.
And so your faith is lacking because you will never allow God to put you through the experience.
My Lord, son. My Lord.
This storm came through here with just a warning. The storm threat came through here. It was just a warning. But it caused us to see the level of our faith. And your faith, we know faith as the definition in Hebrew 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. We know it as that. You've heard me say faith underlies everything that exists. Faith is behind everything you see. But when it's time to experience faith, because true faith is experience.
Yes it is.
True faith is not talking.
Yes, it's experience, son.
True faith is experience.
Experience, yes, sir.
So when it's time for you to prove that God is who he is, God never allowed you to be tempted of something to prove to him.
That's right.
Because God knows the future.
That's right.
I know what you've been taught. I know we didn't have it taught to us that God is allowing you to go through some of us have said that God put us in the situation and said, here, get in this situation. Prove to me that you're worthy of my word. Prove to me that you're worthy of my gift. Prove to me that you're worthy to be who you are. God never put you in a situation and say, prove nothing to him.
That's right.
God knows your heart. Your heart is speaking to God when your mouth is saying nothing. So when you have to prove something that's not to God, you're proving it to yourself. Because you are the one that has to change your way of thinking. And I preach the sermons. I preach and I threw my leg in the air and throw my head back and said God was trying to get me to prove to him that I was who I was. And when I come into the enlightenment of who God, the true spirit of God, I realized that God knew me already. I heard people say it, but when you experience God knowing you already, oh, you all don't hear me. I've heard people say it. I've heard grandma and mama them say God was a good God. I heard grandma and mama and all the people and the saints in the church say God put gas in my car. God allowed my car to make it to church. I thank God for my being here. Giving honor to Christ who's the head of my life. I just want to thank God for waking me up this morning. I think they gave the testimonies of ordinary things, but when you hear an extraordinary testimony, when you hear somebody that said that God delivered me out of an accident, the car flipped over. When you hear somebody say that God delivered me when everybody got shot and killed around me, when you hear somebody say something that is beyond your thinking and your ability, you know what a true testimony is is all about.